Conjure in your mind the image of a marble statue. What do you see? White. White, lustrous, polished surfaces. White. Just like ancient Rome.
Hear ye, hear ye! Know ye all that Roman statues were white?
Artists and historians can be forgiven if they equate the classical period with the color white. The statues found in the ruins are almost uniformly white. Augustus claimed to have left a city of marble, not a city of flaking paint. This has left us with a prejudice that is hard to shake, the assumption that Roman statues were only white.
As you can see, gentlemen, Roman statues are white.
Max Hollein writes, "The educated middle class's ideal of a pure marble white antiquity prevailed unchallenged into the 21st century." Johann Joachim Winckelmann wrote of color on classical statuary, but his ideas were suppressed by his editors. Even now, Winckelmann is remembered more for his dogma about pure white classical art. The whiter the body is, the more beautiful it is as well. He said, color contributes to beauty, but it is not beauty. Color should have a minor part in the consideration of beauty, because it is not color, but structure that constitutes its essence. We are suspicious of color. Writers such as Johann Wolfgang Goethe equated a predilection for color with wild tribes and lack of civilization. And so, at the root of our prejudice about polychromatic sculpture is a bit of circular reasoning. We esteem the ancients. The ancients esteemed whiteness. Therefore, ancient sculpture was white. And so, we see what we wish to see, even when the evidence is staring us in the face.
All good scholars know Roman statues were white.
But there is danger in being too stubborn with one's opinions.
White. Glorious white marble. It's what the Romans appreciated the most. In fact, I am so confident in my opinion. Let me say this. If anyone can show me that Roman statues were painted, I will eat my hat.
The ancient sources do not speak of painted statues. Or do they? Of statues, they speak a great deal. Cicero loved them and wrote of them. But nowhere does he mention painted statuary except to note that a statue of Apollo, stolen by Verres from a temple of Asclepius, had the name of Myron written on his thigh in small silver letters. But we can imagine the contrast of the colored letters against the gleaming monochromatic marble. It is the marble itself that the Romans seem to value. Strabo lists all the wonderful marbles from around the Roman Empire, and there are examples of statuary where polychromy was achieved by combining these different marbles as if by extension demonstrating the vastness of the empire.
Here's the thing. If you are an important person in Rome, and you're going to commission these statues out of the finest quality colored marbles, you are not going to cover them up with paint. Paint would if it existed at all, and I'm not saying it is, if paint existed, it would be for very inferior sculpture.
The 19th century saw scholars once again flirting with acceptance of polychromy, as Roman and Greek statues were recovered with traces of their original paint. And then the idea was again forgotten. Even today, when moderns try to recreate a classical sculpture, they make it white. And then in March of 2006, a statue of an Amazon was recovered at Herculaneum, with delicate colors clearly preserved on the hair, eyes, and eyelashes. Mark Bradley goes on to say, "It was reported in several mainstream European newspapers, demonstrating the enduring potential for paint on classical sculpture to surprise or shock the public." But one statue, the so-called Prima Porta Augustus, discovered in 1863 at the Villa of Livia, has received special attention. When it was recovered, it still retained many visible traces of color on its clothing, hair, and details of the eyes and the armor. A team of experts from the Vatican carefully cleaned the statue and documented 6 or 7 different colors. And based on those colors, a plaster reconstruction has been made, which may seem garish to our eyes, but perhaps not to the ancients. It is not the only example of color on sculpture. As Mark Bradley states, Tauroctony reliefs from the cult sites of Mithras also often retain traces of color and gilding, owing to the stable underground conditions in which they have been preserved. These reliefs were color-coded so that individual features of the scene's iconography could be picked out, and Mithras' face was sometimes gilded as he stared back towards the sun. So it is true that our prejudices must be set aside. But how far has the pendulum swung? So little work has been done, or rather, a great deal of work has been done, but on so very few statues. So what was the norm? On frescoes from Pompeii, we can see depictions of white statues that are partly colored. Partly.
As you can see, gentlemen, Roman statues were white. All white. Not a trace of paint on that statue whatsoever.
Well, he is both right and wrong. And yet, the ancient sources do not speak of colored statues. Except Pliny. There is one almost offhand comment about the sculptor Praxiteles and his painter friend Nicias. Quote, "It was this Nicias, with reference to whom Praxiteles, when asked with which of all his works in marble he was the best pleased, made answer, 'Those to which Nicias has set his hand, so highly did he esteem the coloring of that artist.'" And what color are we talking about? Well, in that, Pliny gives us some clue as well. He explains how minium, what we moderns know as red lead, can be applied with hot Punic wax and then polished. Perhaps, as seen in the Pompeian frescoes, the norm was more in the nature of highlighting, and perhaps some statues had no coloring at all. Such a notion is consistent with both the literary record and the archaeological record, or at least as investigated so far. But I think neoclassical whiteness is so ingrained in our thinking that no amount of investigation will dislodge it in the minds of the general public. But the scholar who tried to reject all notion of polychromatic sculpture, that scholar must indeed eat his hat.